Hello again. I thought I would do, well, there was a question in the Discord for AI on how to set it up. Kind of more of some basic AI, I think. Nothing too crazy. So the first thing I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to bake a Nav Mesh. Just real quick. Make a scene. I'll let that bake. I'll give this somewhat of a texture because we don't want to be looking at ugly blocks. And then we need AI. So, and I'm playing a lot with AI lately, actually. Been making some pretty complex stuff, but this won't be complex. This will be some more basic stuff. Oh, we don't want to use that guy. He's part of a different tutorial. So is he. And so is he. I think maybe lots of those guys were. Alright, fine. Then we will use. Okay. There we go. Okay. So here we have what's going to be AI. So we would want, now depending on the style of game, obviously there's a lot of different things we're going to do. So with the animator, I'm not going to use root motion on this particular AI, but we do need a Nav Mesh agent, and I am going to put a stopping distance to say 2 and a speed at 1 for now. And I am going to put a layer called enemy layer, and we'll put this guy on the enemy layer, and we'll give him a tag, and we'll call him enemy. There we go. Enemy layer, enemy tag. Sure, that works. He has his own tag and his own layer. So we're going to need some way to detect this guy. So we're going to need a collider of some type. So let's give him a capsule collider. Tip him 1.8, 0.9, and we'll say 0.25. There we go. That should give us some pretty decent capsule there. Yeah. All right, let's give this guy, let's give him a weapon. What kind of weapon should we give this guy? Let's go and to his hand. There's his hand. Let's go to our weapons here that we have. Let's grab, I guess it really doesn't matter that much. What about, where's that nice machete? How about that guy? That looks fairly suiting. Now, because of the scale issues with some of these Cinti models, it needs to be scaled. So we will do that. I'm actually going to get rid of its collider. We don't need it. You'll find like lots of times, like if you have a player, right? And the player say has a sword, you would use a collider lots of times, anyways, not all the time, for collision detection for when you hit. I used to do that with AI. I find it's it's not a dependable way to do AI for attacking using colliders. It's a pain to set up, and it's just not dependable. So I use a fair bit different of a position or a thing. So let's give him an FSM. Let's give him, I guess we should give him an animator to begin with, shouldn't we? So let's go. You should try to always organize your folders. I don't have a folder for this, but okay, so we're going to create my little AI. So there we go. So the first thing we're going to need is probably a float. Let's open this up so we can see it a little better. And I am going to create a blend tree. And this will be locomotion. And in here we need two things, at least two things, if not three. So you can go with all sorts of different things. With AI, typically the 1D is usually pretty good. So let's see what we have for animations. I don't have a whole lot for actual weapon animations, do I? Oh, maybe I do. Okay, I do. So let's go into the armed. Well, actually, you know what? Let's go and let's add just a little bit of fun stuff to this. So if I do this, and now I can add a blend tree inside the blend tree. In fact, I'm going to do that twice. And I'm going to get rid of these two. And I'm going to say this one's 0 and this one's 1. So depending on the aggression level, we're going to use one of the two trees. So over here, we're going to use the speed, and we'll use two motions. So we'll have, say, an unarmed, which we need an idle. That will work. And we'll need, say, oh, no, we want a relaxed, sorry. So we need a relaxed idle. And we need a walk. And then let's put the walk at 1 and say the run at 3. And does he have a run? No, so we'll have to probably use a different run, but that's okay. Run forward, there we go. So that's him running. And then this guy will do almost the same thing, except we're going to go to the armed ones. We have an armed idle, and we have an armed walk, and we have a armed run. So this one okay, over here, if we hit play on this. So you see, like, he's just kind of walking around and running, and if the aggression's high, There's a little bit of a difference there. Not so much with the walk, but with everything else. So there, now we have some movement. I guess we should probably do, so the other thing we need is, okay, let's use sword, and, well, okay, first let's do the, let's create another blend tree. So we'll create a trigger called hurt. And it's going to come from this any state. And we're going to, from here, it needs the trigger hurt to happen. And we're going to go into settings and can transition to self as false. So in here, we're actually going to also use aggression. And I was going to do 2 more blend trees and do kind of a randomized hitting, but I don't think we need to get that crazy into it. So let's just grab one of these hurts. So if we have low aggression, or 0 aggression, I should say, that'll be what happens. And if we have the aggression, let's see, let's do that guy there. So that's low aggression, and they're almost virtually exactly the same. But if you had something, and maybe I'll show you just kind of what it looks like if you had something maybe a bit different. So if we had, say this one, it's a little different, right? I mean, if we had that in there, right? So if he was unarmed, he would be doing that, and then that if he was holding like a big two-handed axe, right? But whatever. We're not really getting into the finer details, I guess you could say. I could probably use a different animation anyways. There we go. Unarmed and armed. Alright, so there's that. We will do a death. I'm just going to drag a death over. And that will also be a trigger called death. And it's also going to come from any state. And it can't transition to itself. And there's that. We could also do attack. So we will do the attack, and again, if we wanted to, we could do another blend tree and do different types of attacks. Might be something neat to see, perhaps, so maybe we will. Attack value, how about? And let's create a blend tree for that. And this one, I'm going to come off of the locomotion and back to the locomotion. So in here, as exit time is off, and we get the attack trigger. And in here, we're going to use the attack value, and I'll just use a couple of different ones. Probably don't need to go nuts on these either. So sword, let's do one, I don't know what these look like, but that's okay. So there's 3 different attacks. So if he attacks, we have that, and if this goes 1, we're going to do that. If this goes 2, we're going to do that. Pretty simple. So our AI. So one thing I like to do is, personally, get agent velocity, and I'm going to get the square magnitude every frame, and set animator float. There we go. Put that underneath the get. So we want to do speed is going to be vel with a, say, a 0.2 damp time, so it's not instant. It builds up over time, kind of idea. So let's say, and I will show you how that will look just as that. So I'm gonna, do I have a wander? No, I don't have a wander. So let's just get position. Current position. And random floats. Let's do 2 of those. Let's go, I don't know, negative 10, 10 to X, negative 10, 10 to Z. So we're going to get our position, we're making some floats, and then we're going to vector 3 add X, Y, Z. Move that to the bottom. Make sure the order of things are proper. These 3 don't really matter, but we're kind of developing our variables. And then down here, we're going to take this current that we've gotten or created or whatever. We're going to add these ones that I've created, which is why these need to come first. This thing here will prevent it, because ultimately if you tell your AI to go somewhere, or the AI tells them to go somewhere, and like there's nothing here, maybe there's a big rock or there's a house, but there's no nav mesh here, he can't get there, and it could cause issues or errors pending. So this here will say, okay, so this is our position, and we're going to plug that into this thing, and he's going to say, okay, well, if you want to say go here, we're going to scan everything around here to find you the closest point on the nav mesh to where you want. And I mean, if the place you want is available, then that's where we'll go. But if it's not, we can go out to 10. And the bigger the number you have here, the more dependable it is, but the higher cost it'll be. So this is the returned value. You could play with these as well, but okay, so then nav mesh, nope, nav agent, no, set agent, destination. So one of the things I'll also show you is the difference between these. So set agent destination, we give it a vector, a area, it calculates a path to it, and then it walks that line. So it's pretty good on performance. Set agent destination as game object runs in the update. This one doesn't. So every frame, if you use this one, he'll say, okay, I'm going to calculate a path to this guy. That's where I'm going to walk. Next frame, I'm going to calculate a path to this guy, and that's where I'll walk. Next frame, I'll calculate a path to this guy, and that's where I'll walk. So it's a lot heavier than, say, this one, because it's every frame. But with that said, if you had this AI chasing a player, you'd want to use this one, because if the player moves, you want the AI to correct his path. This one won't correct its path. If you tell the AI to go here, he goes there. If you're chasing someone and this guy runs over here while the AI is running, he'll can keep going until he hits that spot, and then go. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do that. Now I could do based on I sometimes run into issues if I use agent remaining distance. So I'm going to, since we're moving to here, we're moving to here, I'm going to reuse this variable here, and I'm going to vector3 operator it. So I'm going to current position, and from that returned position, I'm going to operator as distance, store float as distance, every frame, float compare, and put this below everything at the bottom. If distance is less than, now you got to remember we also have the stopping distance of 2. So let's go say 3. If we are less than 3, then let's go over here. Okay, so, but really the whole purpose is to show you, let's take that off, that the AI is using his animations. Right now, we have this bit of a sliding thing, so we have to kind of adjust that. Right, so he's at a speed of, so let's go 1.5, but then let's go into his animator, go into his locomotion, and say, okay, walk is 1.5, run can be 4 for 1.5. All right, where's our little guy? So need to trim that down a bit more, and maybe speed him up a little faster. Okay, so let's go speed, actually no, let's go 1.5. I think that's going to be fair, but let's do this. Let's slow these down. It means that he's kind of a skeleton, right? Let's make him be a little more skeleton. So, yeah, okay. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, there's our little guy. He's kind of got this weird hoppy thing happening. So what I'm going to do, oh, I see his speeds, see how his speed's at 2.2. So getting the squared velocity, what happens if we get this? Aha. All right, well, let's not get the square magnitude, even though it's a faster number to get. Process time-wise. Let's just get the magnitude. That should stop his little hop. Good. All right, So now he's got this little more of a walk now. And he looks a little better. He's not sliding as bad. But you know what? I think I'm going to actually slow him down some more. Let's make him look a little cooler. But that probably means we're going to have to slow this down. Yeah, probably just slow him down just a bit more. Alright, so that's at 0.7. That actually looks pretty good. And then let's take this guy up to 0.7. 0.65. There's some OCD coming in there. Alright, so I mean there's like an AI just doing a basic wander. Right? So I don't know if we're going to keep that, or maybe we'll modify it, or whatever the case may be. So we would need a way for the AI to see the player. There are numerous ways to do this. So let's say, let's make a player. Let's make a fake player. There's our player. Let's put the player on his own layer. Player layer, tag player. So I'm going to add an FSM, and this one's going to be senses. So what you could do, you could do an overlap sphere. Is a nice way. Raycasting to a target's a nice way. Just flat out checking distance is a nice way too, right? So depending on how you have it set up, probably one of the more common ways will be an overlap. So if we say we have a radius, and I don't know if draw gizmo will even work for that. Okay, so I think the easiest way to do just a cheap radius is this. Okay, so if you have a sight of 10, roughly, that would be how big it is, right? So I don't know how big you want to make your sight. It really is up to you. So we're going to get overlap sphere, owner from position, which I don't know, I don't think we need that. Possible targets. We don't need to include owner, but we are going to limit this to the player layer. And if you want, you know, you have different, oh, this one can only have the one layer. Well, there might be another one, but whatever. There's numerous ways to get this. So, on found object is we have seen player. So, I probably should have attached a thing to that. Right? So, the player's there, right? So he hits it and he obviously found it. And if I take this guy and we move him way out here and reboot this one, he hasn't found it, right? Now it's not triggering because it's not it doesn't overlap Spherecast. That it doesn't do it every frame, right? So there are various different ways to do that, right? Because, for example, we could do a wait, and well, we'll make it say even 2 seconds, and we'll put that over to a finish, and we'll just come back and back in. And over here, I'm just going to put a next frame event. I like next frame events. I use them all the time. So then, if we see a player, we'll be in this state. But now I can take this capsule and run them over here, and you can see how this guy, he can't see the player. All right, he's pulsing, he's checking. The player comes in closer, and now we can kind of see him. So there is one thing that we're going to want to do, is just because the player comes into this range doesn't necessarily mean you can see him. What if the player is behind a wall or something? So we could continue off from this depending on the game style. That's fine. But I think I will raycast. So what I'll do is I'm going to get position. Oh, that didn't take. There we go. So I'm going to get position of myself. I'm going to vector 3 add XYZ of myself. I'm going to add 1. Put that underneath it. That can be world space. And then I'm going to raycast from myself. I need to raycast at a direction. Actually, you know what? Let's do it this way. This is another little trick I've used a fair bit, and it just makes things easy. Let's make an object called sight. And let's move him up. Now say around chest level. So I'm going to raycast from my sight. And I'm going to go in the forward and say I'm going to go 20. But now this is the trick, is I'm going to look at is this sight is going to look at okay, first we need to get our target first. So I mean, really, if you only have array get. So from here, we have possible targets. We're just going to get the index of 1. That should work. So we're going to look at our target. We don't care. Oh, yes, we do care about that. We're not doing that every frame. And we look at it, and then we're going to raycast forward. So technically, we should hit that object. Now we need, and I'm only going to fire 1 ray, so I'm going to put that to 0. So we have 2. We need to hit the player, but we also need to hit terrain or something. Like whatever it is you have for walls, which might be your default layer, who knows. And that's because if we fire array and the player's behind it and we don't want to see, we want to be able to hit that wall. So if I say mark that as terrain, it will now hit it. So we array get, come over here and we're doing this, and if we hit, we're going to come over here and we are going to compare tag. So on our hit object, is it player? True and false. So false, I am going to put another weight in for 1.5. False, go there and retry the whole thing again. So if it's true, that's a different story. Now the other thing we want is here, because if you raycast and you don't hit anything, you're not going to get a hit event. So let's make sure we can come out of this state. All right, so if we now I come over, if I'm sitting behind this wall, you should see it loop back. Right? Yes. See, we're hitting the cube. Now, if I move the wall, we hit the capsule. We hit the player. So it's working perfect. Now, the one thing I do want to test on that, though, is to make sure I don't have to clear the array. Right? So if I come in here, I move out. We're going to take a look at this guy's possible targets. So it's 1. So I am going to test that a little more thorough by making another player. And that's just to make sure, okay, so he comes in, he leaves, this guy's going to come in. Now, possible targets is 1. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Because we're getting the index of 0. So I wanted to make sure that this thing's kind of like a new array each time it goes. So anyways, let's clear those. So if we see a player, what happens? Well, we know there's a few things that need to happen, right? We need to, I'm going to probably run this on a different, add FSM. Let's do an attacking FSM. I probably don't need the word FSM in the FSM. So in here, we're going to have a bool can see player. So back to the senses, that means what we're going to do is set FSM bool in attacking to can see player to true. And while we have something attacking is going on, we then need to, how do we want to do this? We could do a similar thing to this. Well, I guess this whole thing. Again, if we wanted to make sure we haven't lost the player, right? So I copy and paste. Actually, I'll delete this one and come down to here. Oh, getting all crazy. Right, and this thing could more or less do the exact same thing. The only difference is we obviously don't want to, refire and do the same kind of events. So more or less, all we want is if we have a hit event. Do we have the weight? Did I not bring the weight over? If we have a hit event, this time we're just going to go back and keep looping. If we don't have the hit event though, now we have something else. So we can go to a let's see. Dear Lord, you guys are all going to think I'm nuts. So if we don't have a hit, so what we'll do is we're going to go here to the same thing again, but this time this one is going to do something different. So if we get a hit event, we can come back up here. Right, so this is kind of like we don't see anything. Okay, we see something, so we're fighting it. Now, we were fighting something, but we don't know where it is now. Kind of idea, right? So now the only difference is now that we're still looking for it. We don't want to tell our attacking system to stop attacking, more or less. So he is literally just going to say, hey, I've lost it. And now we need to kind of do a weighted time while we're looking, I guess you could say. So let's say int subtract. So maybe we're going to have a thing called memory. And we're going to subtract 1 from this memory. And int compare. Move this down. Move it down. There we go. So if memory is 0, and that we're just going to go back up here. Get this kind of a big loop all of a sudden. So if we're in here though, let's set int value. Our memory, let's give it, I don't know, say a count of 5. So, oh, actually, well, we don't want to put it there. Because if we hit, you know what, if we hit, we're going to need another state here. Because we would also need to set this back to 5 as well here. We've refreshed the memory. Now we have this. So if we're coming back though, right, we're going to go back to this idle. Now we actually need to do stuff, because now over here we have this. So I'm going to copy that, bring it over here, paste it here, and put it to false. The other thing I think I will do is over here, agent max speed to what it is right now, which is 0.7. And if we have seen a player, we can move it up to say 3 or 4 even. So he starts running if he sees the player. But if he's not seeing the player, he's walking. So now we have our idle, combat, lost combat, but still have memory of the enemy. And the only thing that changes is we have a bool that we can or can't see the player. So let's go over here. Let's get FSM bool. No. You know what's better than that one? Let's go into the ecosystem. FSM bool. We have it should be somewhere around here. Watch it be up near the top. FSM int, SSM, all right, let's just type in the whole thing, man. So be it. Oh, it is up there. Go figure. All right, so this guy, once it compiles, can then FSM bool test. And let's do senses. Pretty sure that should work. So okay, it was in the attacking. Whatever. There's lots of times I'll actually make an FSM that just holds all the variables, and I set and get everything to that one FSM. It kind of cleans things up. Okay, so if we can see the player, we're going to come down here. And this, we're going to put it over here as well. And then we are going to come down here and put it in here. Only this one is going to be under false. No, I don't need the idle. So the set animator will always run. The wander will only run if we don't see the player. The senses will run and get things. All right, so technically, he's wandering. Or he briefly was wandering. Oh, yeah, okay, let's fix that. I guess we really don't need it in this one. It's kind of more in this one. This is the set destination. This one's just a calculation. Let's just get rid of it. Yeah, I could take off the every frame, but really, I mean, for one frame, it's not a big deal. Right, so he's wandering, and if I come over here, he should, well, it starts running. He went to his last position and stopped. Which is what should happen, right? So, yeah, so he's kind of in this idle. Now, if we go to the senses, we're in this, we're in combat phase, right? And if I come out of there, oh, yeah, we have to do something here. We need to fix this up. So anyways, let's go look at this one, which won't change because we need to fix this one. Yeah, I totally spoofed on that one, eh? So here, we're scanning, right? So this is where, okay, we have checked. We do our weight, so we're checking. We do our weight, and then you know what? Let's stick it right here. Let's do ray length, possible targets, length, and int compare. Actually, you know what? That's kind of a bad method, because if one player moves out and the other one player moves in, well, no, it would work. But you know what? I mean, we have the target. We really don't need to sphere cast. Like, we have the target. Really, the only thing we need to do is this. So, okay, we set the bool, we set the memory, we set the speed. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. And let's just come down to here. Let's just do our look at and our Raycast. And if we hit the guy, we'll do our weight and go back. If we don't hit the guy, then we can go down here. That makes more sense. And we can then subtract one from memory, do our weight, do our test, come over here, and then this one's fine. It was just kind of this one here. Alright, so now he's wandering, we come in, he starts running. Obviously we still got to change his direction and stuff, but that'll come in the attacking one, right? So I mean, the wander's there, the senses are there, we take the capsule, we move him away. He goes into the that one, to which that one's not going to function the way we wanted it to, because he's doing this. So we need to go there, right? Because I mean, if he hits, I mean, really, we should have never hit this one anyways. It's kind of more of just in case. So, okay, we do the sphere cast, we wait, we go over here. I guess we can just come down here. You don't even need that one. We do our sphere cast, we wait for 2 seconds, we subtract 1 from the memory, don't need that many weights in it. If the memory's idle, we go back here. If not, we'll go back up here. But if we actually get the player, then we're heading back that way. Alright, so, okay, we come in, we'll see him, we start running, and we move. Let's go to our little senses. Alright, life is good, we're in our combat for the senses. Oh, the players run away. Not far enough. Oh, we're not getting that position. Gotta add that in there. Fair enough, fair enough. So we need, so raycasting from myself. Could have sworn. Oh wait, no, yeah, because we're. Oh, jeez. Get rid of that portion. We just need it from the site. We're not actually using that part. Alright, so if we hit, we go there. If we don't, we'll go there. Alright, so we're hitting. We shouldn't be hitting anymore, other than the fact we're hitting a wall. So we need a compare there. Because I'd have to move that out of the way as well. Then he goes down. So yeah, we need to have a compare. Right, so this is his memory. So he's scanning right now. And he's like, okay, screw it, I'm going back to my wander. Okay, so we need to have one little thing in here, is this guy. So we hit, but we need to know if it's a player. If it's true, okay, cool. If it's false, then we're going this way. Save. As you can tell with AI, I mean, AI can get pretty complex pretty quick, right? So I mean, he's technically raycasting, hitting him, but he can't see him. We go over here and he sees them, and he's stopped. Now I come over here, he should go back into his wander state after his memory runs out. Oh, what do we have here? So here we have the overlap sphere. And it is doing he's hitting the cube. So this guy also at this stage needs that same compare. Or else if he sees the wall, he is going to think he is seeing the player. So if it's good, then he can go back up. If it's false though, then go down here. Alright, so now, whoop. we have this little guy. He's doing a little wander. Player comes around. He goes all crazy. Player moves behind a wall. He goes into his memory, which is obviously way too fast. And then he goes back to his wander. So that's good. Let's take that up to at least 1. And maybe we'll make this memory like 10. So he has 10 seconds. Is that the only place we have it? I think so. Okay, so now we have this. We have bool test. Can see player. We can see the player. So what's the first thing we want to do? Is we want to know who the player is. So from the senses, we're going to get our target. Well, I guess hit object is probably a more accurate one. We're going to store this as my attacking target. I'm going to use agent stopped just to make sure if he's in the middle of a wander or whatever the case may be, we're going to stop all that right dead center and say screw that, you are doing something else. I'm going to break the frame up right there though, so it stops and we're not giving other commands that screw up with that. So he sees the player. He is now going to, well, let's set agent destination as game object, or my attacking target. Right, so even just this alone, you will now see right, like he's not doing anything. We pop out from the door and he's like, wait a minute, there's someone there. And I forgot to turn this back on. So the one thing with these, they are great to use because you stop the logic, but you need to make sure to turn it back on. Right, okay, so he's sitting there. We come around the corner, he sees us and he runs at us. Right, there he is. Doesn't matter where we go now, he's going to chase us. And even if we run around here, he's going to try to, well, he'll run through the wall because it's not baked into the Nav Mesh right now. But technically his memory is running during those phases. And if we can get away from him long enough, he'll go back to his wander. So it's getting there. So the other thing we need is distance. Is if our distance is lower than, say, 3, we need to be attacking. Now, with that said, it's not quite yet. We're going to copy this exact same thing and paste it over here. But instead of less than, we're going to go back to chase. So when we get close enough, we want to make sure that we're going to wind up an attack. But if the guy moves away, we need to go instantly run back to to the target. So the other thing we're going to do is during this phase, we are going to look at our target, and I guess speed's not really a big deal, and we'll give this a 15 tolerance. So we are now aligned. And once we are aligned, we can random float between 0 and 2. Then we are going to float round. Okay, float floor. All right. Let's go to the ecosystem real quick. We want float round. Because if you remember, we set up the attacks such as we have different attacks. Float round. Okay, there we go. So take random, route it as a float to attack value. Set animator float and set animator trigger. Okay, now we need attack value to be attack value. Make sure that's underneath those. And attack, this one needs to be right at the bottom. And then we can do a wait. For, I'll probably say 1.5 seconds. Finish. Move to the bottom. We're going to go over here, and we're going to do another wait. But this one will say be 2 seconds. Then we're going to go into there. No, there. Go back to chase. We never line that up, so let's line that up. So this is going to be our attack cycle. Now, the other thing I want to do is this. Just copy and paste. So while we're kind of in our little cool down phase, if they move out of the way, we want to go back. Now, if we go back here, it kind of resets the cooldown. So we almost want to I don't know, I suppose it's not that big of a deal. Alright, so now, let's see how much time we have. So we come around the corner, he runs at us, and see how now he's attacking. Oh, we also got to put his aggression level up, right? But he's always going to attack, and if we go around him, as you can see, he'll turn and attack. Like, he's not going to attack just randomly, kind of idea. So let's quickly do senses. Let's set animator float the aggression to 0. Copy, and we've hit something. It's the player, and to 1. So now he's wandering slowly. We come in here, and you notice with his attacks, like he's doing his random attacks. That didn't seem very random so far. Oh, don't prove me wrong now, you a-hole. There you go. Yeah, so he's doing his random attacks. As random as, you know, the random float values will give us anyways. And that's just one method to kind of do that. So now we have that. So let's check our time. Oh, we're 1:10. This has been a long one. Okay. I don't know. I mean, we're almost kind of done though. Maybe I'll cut this one and then I'll just quickly do the next part. Sound good? Okay.